welcome to another great adventure over here on RJB Wildlife. On this adventure, we are here at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park where I'm going to be giving you the State of the Park update. So if you're ready for another great adventure, let's go. There's some change going on here at the Safari Park towards the end of summer, as starting September 1st, the hours will revert back to the normal 9 to 5 operating hour, and then on the weekends in October, which we'll get to around that time, it will be 9 to 7 for Autumn Festival. But you'll also notice a little bit of a change as you're driving into the parking lot, as these new banners have showed up in every area of the parking lot, and they kind of depict all the different experiences and some of the wildlife you'll be able to see at this facility, which is a really nice touch because they replaced the kind of faded out actual pictures of some of the wildlife here, and now you kind of have this more artistic style, but a little bit of a stylistic change as we start to get into a new era at the Safari Park. And I want to start us off here in Safari Base Camp, where there isn't a ton going on except for this project right behind me. This little shack is where the Santa Claus meet and greets have been for wild holidays, and it is unknown what the future is of that, considering they are planning on building a bar space here with the theming revolving around Max, the salmon-crested cockatoo you can see at the front of the Safari Park. This would be an odd decision simply given the operating hours the park has opted for throughout the year of 2025. The only way this could make sense, in my eyes, is with an extension of the hours going into next year, specifically the 9 to 7s in the spring and the summer. Nothing is confirmed as to whether or not they will be going back to those, but it does seem to be a foregone conclusion that we will be going back to those hours, simply because if you do this and you make this move, you got to staff it, and there's an operational cost to it. So if you're not making money off of it, what's the point in actually opening it? So we'll see how this works, but it does seem likely we will be going back to the normal operating hours that we saw in 2024 rather than the odd year that is 2025. And a little bit of a surprise before we leave Safari Base Camp, but they've put this tarp up around the bat-eared fox habitat. Now, it is unknown what this is for. This might be to address certain things with the fencing and maybe even elevate said fencing, kind of like what we've seen throughout the rest of the park that we'll get to a little bit later. But at this moment in time, I am unsure as to what this is here for. So I will be sure to keep you guys updated on that as I learn more. Our next stop is Nairobi Village, and there have been some substantial changes going on in this area. First and foremost, I want to bring up the future of the zip line. The zip line will be coming back here shortly. They actually were having some employees working on the area. However, I have been told that is coming back on a seasonal basis, so that is not going to be like an everyday type thing like it used to be, just during some of the peak seasons when the most guests are present here at the park. As far as animals here are concerned, though, there are 2 crown crane chicks on the island here in Mombasa Lagoon. And over in the Hidden Jungle aviary, it appears there are some black-breasted leaf turtles that have taken up residence into one of the little exhibit spaces. The rest of them still have the rainforest leaf covering on the window, so hopefully in time those start to return. They were all filled, or mostly filled, a while ago, but when Wildlife Explorers Base Camp opened, a lot of the species that were being housed there went over to the zoo. And the adjacent aviary, the rainforest aviary, has been closed for some time, and I've heard that that project has been delayed slightly. So that area is not open. However, there are some other exciting things going on here in Nairobi Village. So we are now over here in Gorilla Forest, and there is a lot of excitement over here at the Safari Park as Paul, Don, and Jessica both arrived a couple weeks ago and have been spending this week on habitat for the first time. Now, as of this morning, I have only been able to see really Jessica out and about in the habitat, as Paul, Don has been in the little caves back here. However, he did make a couple of appearances. Due to them being so new to the Safari Park, it is going to be a little bit of an acclimation period, not only for the habitat itself, but the weather and the environment that they are now in here in Escondido. They also still have to be introduced to the 4 females that made up Winston's troop that they will eventually be joining, so that can take a little bit of time. The one thing you'll notice about these two gorillas is that they're extremely laid back, and this is how they were at the zoo. So if you see them laying down and just kind of being lazy, sleepy, that was an every afternoon routine for Paul Don over at the San Diego Zoo. So don't be alarmed, he is just lazy. Hopefully one day he will claim some of Winston's old little thrones, but as of right now, he has his favorite spots here. Winston was a fan favorite animal here at this park, and his spot will never be forgotten or replaced. But Paul Don will continue the legacy that Winston left here with the troop that Winston cultivated. So we are in for a very exciting future of gorillas here at the safari park. So we've made it to the northern portion of the park, and I want to start in Condor Ridge, where there's not a ton to talk about. They did go through that little renovation project and bring in some new birds, most notably the ocellated turkeys. And the turkeys have spent some more time up in the front, so they're not just hiding in the back like they were when we first saw them. So pretty cool development there. But an interesting little development that has taken place in this part of the park specifically has to do with the former tiger habitats, and really the former lion habitats that used to be here prior to those expansions. There has been some construction and activity in those habitats recently, and everything I was told regarding this project was it has to do with the 3 mountain lion cubs that were rescued last year. These 3 individuals have been taking up residence in that space. We have now entered the rainforests, more specifically the Sumatran rainforests, in the form of Tiger Trail. Now there's a couple things I want to bring up here, one of which is an interesting little development, and the other one is somewhat of a rumor that I've been hearing. I want to start off with the development. As it appears, the poaching camera or the trail camera area where the TV is in the pond dock has been deactivated. It just has the attractions logo and the safari park logo as well on that TV, so a little bit of a bummer there. And I've been hearing a pretty prominent rumor over the course of the last few months. I haven't really addressed it because they still don't know exactly what's going on, but it might be possible that Dumai, the male here, does get moved to another facility and they bring in another male to pair with Jillian. This is, of course, just a rumor to this point. There is no substance to this. I have heard volunteers and some staff members mention it as a possibility, but I have also heard that they may also pair Jillian and Dumai again. As we embark on the roadways of Australia in Walkabout Australia, there are a couple things I want to bring up here. First of which is going to be involving the kangaroo walkabout. The kangaroo walkabout is going to undergo a small little project and refurbishment, mainly just to redo some of the pathways to make it safer for the guests and the wildlife in the walkabout. So the kangaroos, wallabies, and waterfowl do not have access to the majority of the yard, so they are kind of cordoned off to one side. But the timing of this is pretty unfortunate because a joey has just started to emerge from one of the female's pouches, and the offspring has been a coveted prize for a lot of the photographers and videographers that come here. I was lucky enough to get one of the first shots of the joey's head popping out of the pouch, and apparently today one of the people here actually got a video of the entire body. So it's getting really exciting here at the Walkabout. You know, I'm mostly positive about these places, and I love the safari park, but there's one thing that I can't ever forgive it for. This thing is never open, and they have some amazing fries here. Now you can get 3 main variants of fries, the chili limon, the garlic, parmesan, and just the normal original, but they did start doing churro fries here. But again, this place is never open unless it's on the weekends, which is stupid. Fix this, please. In all seriousness, however, that is one of the best spots to get food here at the safari park, and it is a shame that it is only open on Saturday and Sunday, albeit for a brief time. They never really had the staff to keep it staffed for an entire week, so hopefully that changes. I now want to transition over to the safari park's biggest project, Elephant Valley. And we received some amazing news this week as to the future of this project, as it is now slated to open in early 2026. The opening timeline wasn't the only thing revealed, as there were certain details that they also decided to unveil for the first time, specifically revolving around the main building and the area surrounding it. We now know the building's name as Mukutano House, which means gathering place, and this is going to serve as the two-story restaurant in this area. And surrounding it is going to be Mukutano Park, which is going to be a little bit of an education venue as well as relaxation space for a lot of the guests here. So they are actively working on this area, and of course due to all the loud noise, but this area right here behind me is what I assume is going to be Mukutano Park, as it's connected to this building that I assume is a restroom and is really just some empty space that they haven't really addressed yet. There was also some serious speculation on what could possibly be a new habitat that houses a separate species. This is unknown. We'll definitely check back in when we see it at the end of the month for the Elephant Valley update. But as of right now, there isn't anything concrete. We'll check in to see what it looks like from the Elephant Valley viewing, but as of right now, it's up in the air what that could be. There is one other thing I want to bring up as I'm down here, and this kind of affects the safari park as a whole, and that is the fact that cheetah runs are still extremely random. I was lucky enough to see one a couple weeks ago. Granted, this was at around 8:30 in the morning, and they tend to do it pretty early, but also not frequently. So that was the first one I'd seen in about a few months, and it is very sporadic, so it depends on where you are. I'd try to get down to the Africa area as early as possible just to see if you might get a glimpse at a cheetah run. So we are now over here in Lion Camp, and there hasn't been a lot of change outside of the construction project that occurred a couple months ago. One thing though I do want to point out is there is a new platform that they can just rest on. I did get the females on this a couple weeks ago. Bo, I've yet to see out here since the renovation, and luckily he's right here, munching on a bone. One brand new thing they did add is a kind of line from the two log posts, and that is meant to hang some enrichment material for the lions when they're out here, specifically food items. And it's just meant to be another added enrichment item. They have been putting food up on top of the logs for Bo to climb up and grab, so this is a little bit of a change as it's a wire that goes straight across these two posts. So we just got off the Africa Tram, and there's a couple things I want to bring up here. I want to start off with the giraffes. First and foremost, the female calf is officially back in the South Africa yard. However, she is in one of those bomas that serve as kind of like a behind-the-scenes quarantine space, so she should be rejoining the herd shortly. However, there is also some bad news, as there is a pretty tall absence out there in the South Africa yard, as Go-On, the male giraffe, did unfortunately pass away a couple weeks ago. This was due to health issues that he was having, specifically around the ankles. From what I've heard, the park did everything it could to aid in his quality of life. However, the burden just became too much for Go-On, and he had to unfortunately be put down. On another note, there's a couple other little things I want to point out. A new male Somali wild ass, or former male, existing male, was brought into the herd, so hopefully more foals are in the future there. There is a new male eland that is out in the South Africa yard. He is hard to distinguish from the other females, so do try to keep an eye on that. I have also noticed on numerous trips that there is a greater one-horned rhino that has taken up residence in the Nikitakan Rhino Rescue Center. We are now down here in the African Outpost section, and there's not a ton to talk about. However, over in the red river hog habitat, there has been a third red river hog in there. His name's Iggy. He's one of the ambassador animals here at the park, and he's been spending some time with the girls in there, Zolo and Tink. Unknown if this is a breeding match that they are trying out, but we'll see what happens. Another more somber update has to do with the lagoon section over here in African Outpost, and in that area we are down to one marabou stork. There were two, and I believe one of them did unfortunately pass away recently, so we do just have the one in the lagoon area. And the last thing here in African Outpost is going to be in this habitat right behind me, as a group of 4 female Nyala have been put in here. Now these 4 girls are pretty shy, as they'll hide off in the back in their newly renovated space that kind of has a private area for them. which didn't used to be there, as this used to be wide open space for birds and some smaller mammals. And this habitat has remained empty throughout the year due to the avian influenza epidemic. So we are now down here in the African woods section, and there are a couple things I want to bring up. First of which is going to be in this habitat right behind me. There are 2 Garanut calves that were born recently, and we are also expecting a third to be born shortly. Now these little guys have been frolicking around and playing. However, today they seem to be behind this little barrier, as possibly the third one is expected to be born here soon. And something that we've noticed over the course of these updates for the last year is that there are numerous habitats that have been retrofitted with new higher fencing. And I'm specifically bringing this up because the Egyptian vulture habitat just went through a renovation where they added a back pen portion area to house the birds at night. This was due to natural predators in the area. Here at the safari park, they are sitting on 1,800 acres worth of land, 900 of which is actual zoo park space. The rest of it is protected territory for the natural wildlife that is here. And I wouldn't normally bring this up, however, there was an article that got posted earlier this week about a bobcat that had been roaming the park and taking some of the animals from this collection. So that is why a lot of the habitats have been retrofitted in this way, specifically Egyptian vultures, which we're covering right now, and then the main pelican vulture habitat over in the Africa Tram. The habitat that used to have storks and vultures in between this Garanut habitat and the okapis has also been empty, and I don't know if there's any plans to actually fill that. So that's another victim of the circumstances. That's going to do it for today. If you had fun on this journey, please hit the like button. And if you would like to embark on future adventures, please consider subscribing and ringing that notification bell. And until next time, I hope to see you all again on the next adventure on RJB Wildlife.